West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West till the death till they bury me. One West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West till the death till they bury me. I be one West till the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy and get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you live again. Getting dividends till we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit. I told you shit phenomenal. Novelty and domino. So what you suckers trying to do? Rhyming comical. This is funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to the pussy niggas just popping shit. Team of all-stars, I coach them up like a Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and apologists. They vagina, so we gon' check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way I vomit this and regurgitate for the audience. They start applauding this cause the competition is fraudulent. From the era where niggas smoke you up like a parliament. The flow been stupid. Shit's gotten retarded since all the dominance. One West rising and prominent. Cause I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. They wanna take a quiet, mute my maneuvers, but I ride like I got group eyes for Uber. Rhymes hard like they've been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Luger, 17 in the ruler. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Abogada for the regatta, niggas wildin', they win every dollar. They ride by black Apollos, let the semi holler. The showstopper, then the promise is a teeny bopper. But now I'm going off Patron and premium my vodka. I put the stitches on the Glock, modify the chopper. It's more heavy, more ready, and it's worth the mama. No marijuana say I got the life inside of it. When I'm a baller, ain't no rapper do it like I do it. A lot of spitties and writers, but when they eat on, none of them can get with a fire around with me. And I had a nigga spin like a tire, down and deep. And I'm still dope as a piper. Every bar burn hard like a spoon with a lighter. Food igniter, when it coming through with the title. Cause I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me.
You understand? You done found a new breed of Hebrews that stand and walk with the Lord's statutes and commandments of the Most High. And we don't care who we got to come up against. You ain't standing before this truth. You understand? We done took them all on and gonna continue to take them all on.
Surrounded by Edomites, lost a lot of truth to this tree of life. Open up the book just to see I'm right. Reminiscing on my ancestors, on those ships who had to plead for life, took us to a place where ain't never safe there. Poisoning our foods and put our children up in daycare. Fresh out of slavery, still thinking that they care. Guns in the community, children can't play there. Brothers still brainwashed, we died for that same cost. Took away our history, believing that we ain't lost. Brother, I'm an Israelite, sin is like kryptonite. Brothers won't pray, no, they rob a link of shit tonight. Praises to the Most High, I ain't like most guys. Eyes on the future, but I learned from a boat ride. Tribe of Benjamin, inherited on both sides. Background Jamaican, mistreated, and I know why. I'm an Israelite, die for my Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for my Israelites. Going through it cause we're Israelites. One Yashra Allah to all my Israelites. I'm an Israelite, die for my Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for my Israelites. Going through it cause we're Israelites. One Yashra Allah to all my Israelites.
Kum Yasha Allah, sons of the power. Rise from the ghetto when Satan want us devoured. The seal of the Lord ain't found in church towers. Never dying on my knees like no coward. wanna be an Israelite, you gon' need more than fringes. You gon' need to show you approve and get in them scriptures. Oh, I forgot to mention, traumatized from the lynching. Homicide, we the victim. I'ma start at the ending. Kids with PTSD, suffering symptoms, never getting treatment. Something he gotta sleep with. Stockholm syndrome so long, it ain't a secret. That's why I die for them brothers I'm facing east with. I'm an Israelite, crackers better get it right. Visions of my enemies, death flow through my dreams at night. If your mind ain't dead, then we don't dream alike. Reporting live from hell, home of Christians and Edomites.
I'm an Israelite, die for the Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for the Israelites. Go through it cause we Israelites. Kwam Yashra Allah to all my Israelites. I'm an Israelite, die for the Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for the Israelites. Go through it cause we Israelites. Kwam Yashra Allah to all my Israelites.
While they play the sidelines, comfortable on benches. Catch me on the front lines, putting work in trenches. Making sure our election, preparing for Armageddon. Mastering this profession of prophesying these lessons. Protecting our adolescents and answering all their questions. Teaching the love they reflection, no matter what the complexion. We got a common connection, a part of God's hand selection. A shot at the resurrection, through us achieving perfection. But to give life takes sacrifice. Battle demons every fight. Short days and long nights. Less sleep and more fights. More wisdom, more strife. Telling everybody that they wrong and you're right. I'm an Israelite, blood of an Israelite. I ride for my Israelites and die for my Israelites. We owe a debt cause Christ paid the price. So who ready to give their life the life of an Israelite?
I'm an Israelite, die for the Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for the Israelites. Go through it cause we Israelites. Kwam Yashra Allah to all my Israelites. I'm an Israelite, die for the Israelites. Blood of the Israelites, cry for the Israelites. Go through it cause we Israelites. Kwam Yashra Allah to all my Israelites.
I'm telling you, man. They really ain't gonna believe that I got a baby of my own while I'm doing this. Little Zahar, man, won't be quiet. Check it out, yo. Yo. Playing spades, reminiscing on days before niggas started shooting, we would still catch fades. It's like the world's a lot scarier since cracking days. And the only thing that we became is rats in a maze. Cause all my brother cancer that is trapping in J's. Mine's fucked up from the pills and the haze. Pop said we hard-headed, stuck in our ways. So I've been praying to the most high that it's just a phase, yup. Hardly surprised and always amazed. Especially at what's been getting radio plays, yo. I wanna be the cataclysm, double cataclysm, bomb atomically and take it back to lyricism. But you know nowadays, it seems like it's forbidden. Anybody in the industry knows they ain't fucking with them. And anyone on sign, they wanna be outshine. So I guess it's just me, myself, and all these empty lines. I never knew that being nice would get you penalized. Once you blowing up, they wanna know your penis size. Hoes all staring, saying you got dreamy eyes. And if you ain't fake, they wanna see you demonized. If they be dropping gems and it's slow as El Dorado, a midnight marauder, young desperado with a bravado. That's a hard act to follow. Make your favorite rapper look like amateurs at the Apollo. Yo, and that's a hard pill to swallow. Me and my vato steady painting pictures like Picasso. Feds trying to clock us like Pablo and Gustavo. Go and tell straight to the Gestapo. Hola muchacho, yo hablo español, el hombre blanco es el diablo. Now I'm going over heads like a poncho. Trying to stack chips with more cheese than some nachos. Why you acting macho? Your whole clique is gato. They ain't want beef, but I feel it like a taco. Yo, don't get it twisted like a rasta. Don't be bringing none of that bullshit into mi casa. You ain't seen this much crack since the Contras. Belly of the beast, we all live inside a monster. That's why I be thanking God I'm alive, tapping into different vibes, penning more than a scribe. Every verse an open letter sent to all the tribes. Lost in the ghetto, said he's struggling to survive, yo. But Things I seen with a pair of eyes got me out here living in this life desensitized. Part of the reason that I'm hardly if ever surprised. I've heard the screams of brothers and seen mothers that cried. Seen a soul leave a body right before he died. 23 years old, gunned down before his prime. While your favorite rapper only talking dollar signs. But when our people in trouble, they quiet as a mime. Every day is the struggle, I speak it through these lines. That's how I know they can't relate, I speak their daily lives. I'm representing for my nation or the lost tribes. For my people that been locked up since 25. Cause being born a minority was their first crime. They serve and protect, choking your neck, sever your spine. They murder one of us, no guilty verdict when they try. They wonder why they get no respect and we call them swine. Live in a time where you lose your life and become a vine. Friends turn to t-shirts, corners turn to shrines. And if our leader ain't a Pharisee, then he's a scribe. Cause he ain't coming out unless he thinks he can scrape a dime. Get his name in the paper, face in the line. The world's black and white and you better pick a side. If I wasn't strong enough, then I would break inside. But I found the truth right before I lost my mind. Sorry, mama, I promised it wouldn't change me, but I would've went insane had I remained the same me. And I know you feel the same way if they slay me. So when I say the white man is the devil, don't blame me. I'm not here to make friends, kiss back and shake hands for politics. Yo, what's affecting all the college kids? I mean, why did the students shoot up the colleges? Newborns found in shopping bags and garbages. All these problems that nobody acknowledges. Promise you one thing, you gonna acknowledge this. Like that.
Shalom, Israel. Yah Bashim Yashai Barakatah, to all the Akim, Yah Shemar Alatha, Bashim Yashai, to all the Akwakim. To water for tuning in. Today is Tuesday night brotherhood class. The topic for today is freedom comes with building the brotherhood of Christ. I got an article or some information from the government of Canada. It's right on their website. You can find it on canada.gc.ca. And we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the things going on in our communities in Canada. This particular article has to do with Blacks and Natives coming together, and some of the leadership in our communities recognize that both Blacks and Native Indians are going through a lot of the same oppression, facing a lot of the same troubles in our families and in our communities. And they're looking to unite with each other. They're looking to solve problems in their communities for things such as youth addictions, women getting pregnant at young ages, the poverty in our communities, systemic racism, oppression, just a lot of different things that our families are going through that the Black community and Native community both recognize are happening to our people. And what's beautiful about being in the I.S.U.P.K is that under good leadership, we've already united Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Under good leadership, that's what's going to form and create brotherhood. Brothers and sisters can unite when they follow a man that the Most High sent for them. Right? And under Commanding General YAHANNA, we have amazing leadership. We have people that we can follow. Somebody that unites us and that solves all the issues that's going on in our communities. So we're going to keep teaching. We're going to try to spread this word out so that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians can hopefully recognize and see that we have the answers in the I.S.U.P.K.
that under Commanding General YAHANNA, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are already united, and we're building a brotherhood. All right. So I'm gonna get into this article. You can check it out. It's on the Canada. It's right on the Canada website, the Government of Canada website. Just gonna read a bit about what some of our so-called leaders in our communities are talking about and some of the issues that they're trying to solve. One moment. Just gonna share my screen. Let's see if that's up. Shalom, young man Kavoy, Yabashim Shabrakatha. All right, so this is this is an article off the Canadian website. And it's under, if you go to resources in the Canada website, there's something called Public Safety in Canada. And under the resources, there's an article called, it's titled Common Ground, an Examination of Similarities Between Black and Aboriginal Communities. So I'm going to give a brief introduction. I'm not going to read through the whole article. I will share the article. Let me share the article in the link. So for anybody who wants to check it out on their own, they can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to I'm going to skim through it. I've read the whole article. For anybody, it's a pretty good read. Go ahead and read through it if you want on your own. But today I'm just going to skim through it a bit to give you an idea of what it's talking about. It's a pretty long article. So the introduction says it's red and black, and they have something called a strengthening circle. This is something that that I guess is part of the Native or Aboriginals culture. This is something that they currently do, and it's just a way that they, I guess they say that they bring people into their circle and just get to know each other better. But yeah, it's called Red and Black Strengthening Circle. This is an introduction to the article. It says, the title of this introduction refers to the symbolic representation of the circle as understood by many Aboriginal people. The circle has no beginning or end. All points in the circle are equal, and it is a symbol of perfect balance. Within the circle, rest for equalities, place colors, black, red, white, and yellow, which are taught represent the four races of mankind. When placed in the circle, all are equal in value and importance. By bringing together Black and Aboriginal people in the circle, we acknowledge our similarities and equality. And I'm going to start off by saying that good leadership is what's going to solve our problems in our community. Having somebody who has the answers to our solutions is going to solve problems in our communities. And in the I.S.U.P.K, we've already found that solution. We've already found good leadership. And so a lot of the ideas that the Black and Native Indian leaders in Canada are looking for And if I read some of that part, they'll come right out and say that they don't have solutions to a lot of the things going on. But during the article, I'm going to pick apart a lot of these ideologies. Um, and right off the top, when they say black, red, white, and yellow represent the four races of mankind, and that all are equal in value and importance. In Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 6, it says, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are above all people on the face of the earth. We are not equal to these other races. And under good leadership, under Commanding General YAHANNA, we've been taught that, and we understand that. It's not a popular thing. It's a very uncommon thing to hear, but blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are not equal to everybody that is on the face of the earth. We are the salt of the earth. We are better than. We are more capable. We are more intelligent. Right? We are not equal. Nothing in this earth is equal. Right? No tree is the same. No animal is the same. No human is the same. That's the way this earth was created. And just by looking outside, you can see that. Right? Equality is a fallacy. And these are some of the things that our people have been indoctrinated with. That all of us are equal. We are not equal. If you're black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, you are better than everybody on the face of the earth. It says, in June 1989, I attended the Canadian Criminal Justice Association Congress in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and decided to sit on a workshop sponsored by the black community. As the four speakers made their presentation, I was struck by the similarities between the experiences and issues faced by their community and those of Aboriginal people. And this is talking about a community of blacks who live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Right? And there's an Aboriginal, there's somebody representing the Aboriginal people, and they're saying it's a she, and she is saying that she was caught off guard. She was surprised that at all the similarities going on in our community. And she says, at one point I closed my eyes, and the only substantial difference between our two people were the accents of the presenters. Over the following few years, my experience in that workshop caused me to think that perhaps those similarities needed to be explored further. One reason for wanting to see whether the apparent similarities could develop into something more substantial was expressed by one Aboriginal participant at the gathering of both of these. And so, like I said, I'm going to skim through a lot of this because it's a pretty big read, but basically the introduction to this is some of the black leaders and native leaders in Canada are recognizing that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are going through basically the exact same things in our communities. And so what they ended up doing was connecting with these black leaders, these indigenous leaders connected with these black leaders to have something that they called a sit down to discuss how they can solve some of the issues in their communities, to see if they could bounce ideas off of each other that would help solve some of the issues. Maybe they would look at it as maybe some of the black leaders were having some success in say youth getting caught up in the judicial system, and they wanted to hear some of their feedback or some of their solutions to the problems so that they could apply it to the indigenous people as well. And so that's what this whole gathering or sit down was about. So I'll start off here. So there's a next section we'll skim down to. It says getting to know each other. it says, this is an Aboriginal participant speaking. They say, I believe the similarities between the Aboriginal and African Canadian communities exist, and those similarities may lead to ways in which our respective communities can develop strategies to reduce the number of our members from entering the youth and criminal justice system. Both of our communities are overrepresented in those systems. We share, however, several common building blocks that can address that problem. We both have a strong and underlying spirituality that guides our lives. We both rely on our spiritual leaders for leadership. There is the inherent strength of our women and family relationships are the bond that keeps our communities alive. I believe we have much to share and learn from each other. And so, again, something that this Aboriginal spokesman recognized is that there's a lot of similarities between the natives or the Aboriginal peoples in Canada and the African Canadian communities. And one of those things is spirituality. And not just spirituality, but this person quoted, we both rely on our spiritual leaders for leadership. And this is something that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are all seeking, right? The Most High refers to us as sheep. And if you've ever observed or looked at sheep, they are lost without somebody leading them. They'll roam around this earth. They won't find their way home. If you see an animal like a donkey and you let a donkey out of your yard, they'll travel a kilometer out and they'll find their way back home. But if you let a sheep out, that sheep is not going to find their way home, right? And so many times in the scriptures as a parable, we're referred to as sheep, lost sheep, and we're in need of a shepherd. We're in need of good leaders. And that's something that this spokesman recognized, is that both these communities are looking to spiritual leaders to guide them. We're looking to spiritual leaders to solve our problems, which is why in the I.S.U.P.K, under Commanding General YAHANNA, good leadership recognizes that our leaders have failed us. Christianity has failed us. Christianity has caused so much chaos and destruction in our families and our communities. You have sincere Christians who are homosexuals. You have sincere Christians who are addicted to cocaine. You have sincere Christians who are sleeping with another man's wife. You have sincere Christians getting locked up in prison, left, right, and center, right? Christianity has failed us. The spiritual leaders for the Aboriginals, they have failed them, right? Our spiritual leaders have flat out failed us. And under good leadership and following a man that the Lord chose is what's going to unite this brotherhood, is what's going to unite Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to come together, right? And go down a bit. It says, when strangers meet for the first time, there's always some hesitancy which eventually disappears once the two learn more about each other and find common ground for a conversation and relationship. Let me go down a bit. Let's see. The gathering was held in a circle which enabled The gathering was held in a circle which enabled all to participate and to speak openly in turn. In place of using an eagle feather, each speaker was passed a carved African talking stick. The blending of the two cultural symbols was an important step in the process of understanding each other. Let me go down a bit. I'll jump down here. This is a quote from one of the Black participants, and then a quote from the Aboriginal participants. They said, when I look at what I learned from a chief, this is a Black participant speaking. They said, when I look at what I learned from a chief of the Bear River Reserve a while back when I was doing adult education, he came in and talked to us and mentioned the 4 things for balance in life. He talked about a mental capacity and the physical capacity, creative capacity, and a spiritual capacity. I just think those are 4 things that we need, like the 4 legs of a table, to keep us balanced. I think that's the most important message I get each time I come to something like this. And what I've learned through my years, and I just want to suggest that might be a strategy focus that we use if we're looking at trying to work together. And then the Aboriginal participant said, just talking to people before the gathering started, I got to learn that we are all looking for answers to the issues we face in our communities. I was amazed that we share many of the same concerns and that we are both using the strength in our communities to resolve them. Maybe we can find ways to put our minds together and to take what is best from both peoples. So again, the introduction, they're just coming together. They started to speak with each other. They're starting to see that they had a lot of the same issues, and we're gonna get into some of the topics they spoke about. So this is something they titled this one "Corrections." It says one of the major reasons that brought representatives from the Black and Aboriginal communities together with their significant overrepresentation in the youth and adult justice systems, which was translated into their overrepresentation in both provincial and federal correctional institutions. And what that's saying is basically there's an overrepresentation of Blacks and Natives inside the prison systems in Canada. I think I saw a statistic that said 2% of all of Canadians' population is Aboriginals or are Natives, and they represent 6% of the prison systems. So what that's saying is basically it's 3 times as much. Natives are 3 times as much represented in the judicial system or in the prison system than every other nation of people other than Blacks. And Blacks were, I think it was, what was that stat? I think Blacks were around 6% of all of Canada's population, and they represented, I think it was something like 14% of all the incarcerated people in the judicial system in Canada. And so basically, it's just saying there's an overrepresentation of our people inside the prison systems. Almost damn near 3 to 1 for every three people in the prison. You're going to see Blacks or Natives or Hispanics represented. It's a very high number, and we represent a very small number of the population of all of Canada, right? And this is a problem in our community. And this is part of the reason they're coming together, because they recognize there's an issue. They recognize that we're overrepresenting the prison systems, and this is something that plagues our communities, right? So they believe that the correctional system was ineffective in addressing the needs of Blacks and Aboriginal offenders, and that it did not respond to the special needs of either population. Participants noted that incarceration made it difficult for offenders to succeed in life after released, and most felt that prison experiences taught youth to be better criminals, where they came out worse than when they went in, as participants stated. And I'll just give the first quote. This is by an Aboriginal participant. They said, "Prison doesn't correct a person. It makes many of them better crooks. They learn from the other inmates. They learn to survive in prison by using violence and intimidation. Many of them turn to drugs as a way to reduce the pain they feel inside. In some ways, it is like a finishing school for life on the streets and not in a family. Right? These are issues going on in our community. This is some of the oppression, uh, that we're facing in our communities. This is part of one of the issues or problems in our communities. And I can guarantee you, in the I.S.U.P.K, under Commanding General YAHANNA, none of us are going to prison. When you come into this school, you're changing your life. You're changing the way you act. You're changing the way you think. You're changing the way you treat each other. Right? We're changing our lives. And we do that by following good leadership. Let me jump down. I'm going to jump down to the next topic. Like I said, this is a long article. I've shared it in the link if you want to go through it. Definitely a good read. Might take about 30 minutes of your time. And this is another issue that they talked about, was racism. It says, although the gathering was brought together to talk about issues in their communities that have led to the high number of Black and Aboriginal people entering the criminal justice system, the participants quickly acknowledged that a major contributing factor to overrepresentation was racism. While no participant was anxious to raise this issue, given its sensitivity, it was an issue that could not be kept in the background. There was agreement for the most part that racism was systemic and could only in rare cases be directed to individuals. Systemic racism, whether through the process of colonization or maintaining the status quo in society, was seen as a major barrier to healing within and among communities, as participants noticed. Well, again, this is something else that's going on in our communities that we're trying to deal with, and that's racism, right? And they're recognizing that part of the reason that there's an overrepresentation of our people in the prison systems is because of racism. It's because of the way that people view us, right? It's because of the way that the police and the judicial system view us, right? Our leaders are recognizing that systemic racism in Canada is a problem, but they don't have a solution. They really don't. See if I can pull up. I'll just read. I'll read one of somebody's quote. This is a Black participant. They said, "We are pleased to hear that the word racism was finally mentioned. Well, I'm here to tell you that I have been dealing with racism for a number of years." This is in Canada. "I've dealt with it through all of my adult working life. Racism is alive and well. It's just that people know how to mask it so that it's not overt. It's not overt as it used to be. It's more hidden. And people know what to do in order to make it so that it does not appear to be racism. But in your heart and soul, you know what's being done to you because you are a Black woman. So we still always have to remember that's also a part and parcel of the whole process that we have to be ever dealing with in order to come to terms with how we proceed. We want it eradicated. Is that going to happen?" And something that's disgusting that goes on in Canada is a lot of people for too long have been, I almost want to say, not ashamed, but they feel as if you say that racism is going on in Canada, something's wrong with you, or you're looked at as you're crazy, because the image of Canada, the image of this country, is that it's all inclusive, and how dare you think I'm a racist? There's no way. There's no way in hell that I'm a racist or that there's racism in Canada. And people like to walk around in that delusion. But if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian living in Canada, you know damn well that racism is alive and well, right? There's something called it's called the Indian Act. I think it's called the Indian Act or Native Indian Act, and that act is alive and well, and that literally um, is a law in Canada towards how they govern dealing with Native Indians. Like this act, this law, I'm gonna read a bit about it, so that nobody has any questions or can leave with the sense that racism doesn't go on in Canada. This is some of the things that the Indian Act, some of the issues that the Indian Act has caused for natives. Just a couple of things. It says the Indian Act, they were disposed of all their lands, traditional economics, or Slovakia, they were disposed of all their lands, traditional economies, and the traditional foods that they had sustained them since time immemorial, which compromised their immune system. Their self-sufficiency was destroyed and replaced by dependency on government agencies. Their culture and traditions were ruled illegal. Let me tell you something about this Indian Act. It was illegal. They made it illegal. I think that was around 1980, maybe 1960. It was illegal for a Native Indian to step outside of their reserve and dance. That's a disgusting thing. You're telling me a person can't step outside of a certain piece of land and dance, practice any type of cultural tradition? The government of Canada is disgusting. You're not allowed to dance the way your culture dances one step outside of your land. You're not allowed to practice any of your cultural traditions if you take a footstep off of the land that we give you, that we tell you you can stay on. That's a disgusting thing, man. The Canadian government is one of the most racist, backwards, hypocritical governments that exist today. You're not going to let a people practice what their parents teach them. They're not allowed to worship or have the spirituality that they were taught to from their parents on your land. What is the definition of racist? If you're Black living here and you've worked any job, you know how you're treated on the job. I've walked to bars, sat in line, and been told to my face, you're not allowed here. You shouldn't be here. This isn't a place for you to be or to hang out. Don't tell me racism doesn't exist in Canada. Right? There's hundreds of thousands of people living in Canada today that will tell you of all the disgusting thing that goes on in Canada. Right? I work in construction. I can tell you about the nooses that they've hung around part of the building structure and just left there for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to walk by when they're on the job. I've seen sites shut down. Don't tell me racism doesn't exist in Canada. Right? Couple more things. This is what the Indian Act, some of the things that happened to the Indians or the Native Indians because of this Indian Act. So they were moved into poorly constructed housing that was often not appropriate for the environment and did not accommodate the tradition of extended family groups. Their children, 150,000, were taken and placed in buildings with insufficient heat that proved to be breeding grounds for tuberculosis. The children were malnourished, cold, ill, lonely, homesick, and frequently subjected to medical experimentation. Right? This is talking about residential schools. The gender bias of the Indian Act devalued women and continues to do so today, to this day, and denied them their legal rights and access to services for themselves and their children. Canada is one of the only nations in the world that continues to use legislation to limit access to services and benefits for Aboriginal peoples on the basis of a descent criteria. Canada's full out racist. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Right? And keep reading some more. Let's jump down to the next thing. Identity. Identity is something else that they talked about. Identity is important for all mankind. People define themselves by who they are, who their parents are, where they are from, what spirituality they practice, and a host of other factors that give them a sense of place and belonging. Most importantly, identity gives one a place within a larger community where individuals can relate through common bonds. Both Aboriginal and Black people at the gathering firmly believe that their communities are the body and spirit of life. Participants recognize that both Aboriginal and Black people face a similar problem that permeates their respective communities: the loss of cultural identity and the loss of who they were as a people. In many cases, it is also the loss of language and ceremony. As more time passes and more children and youth become involved in mainstream institutions, such as schools, and are influenced by the media, there is a real concern that many of the unique elements of their cultures are being lost. Participants raised this issue and stated, so another issue going on in our community is a lack of identity. This is something that our Blacks and Aboriginal leaders recognize is not only is an issue in our community, but something that both of our people are lack. And again, I say under good leadership is what's going to get us out of this mess. Good leadership is what's going to get out of this oppression and this racism, right? All the things that we face on a day-to-day basis. Under Commanding General YAHANNA, he's given people an identity. Commanding General YAHANNA did the research. He studied all the archaeology, the history. In the I.S.U.P.K, we know exactly who Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are. You are the greatest people to ever walk the face of the earth, right? Psalms, it says, you are gods. That's in our law. We are powers. We are authorities walking on this earth. Blacks, and Hispanics, and Native Indians, you are a part of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. You are God's children. You are God's beloved. You understand? Good leadership gives us an identity. And this is something that our people outside the I.S.U.P.K, they lack. They have no knowledge of self. And this is an issue going on in all of our communities. This is something a Black participant said. I guess the issue is, what do we do when we look at those common issues with our peoples and see that there's two things that we have to look at? One is, what can we do with our older generations? They're the ones who actually have an understanding of our identity. For our kids, identity becomes a big factor. The other is that we have a lot of kids in the mainstream school. Probably the biggest concern is making sure they are bilingual as opposed to learning about their own heritage. That shouldn't be. That's a backwards priority, and that is a backwards priority. Okay? I'm gonna pull up a quick scripture. See if I can find it. Salaki, bear with me. This is Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 7. It says, remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy fathers, and he will show thee. Thy elders, and they will tell thee. Right? This Black participant, they were wise to say it's important to ask our fathers. Right? Ask them about our history. Ask them about our identity. Right? But again, with the lack of good leadership, they didn't know the proper questions to ask. They didn't know how to learn about knowledge of self. If they understood that the Bible is a history book of the children of Israel, oh man, you'll learn exactly about who you are, what you are doing, what your ancestors did, how to deal with your wife in marriage, how to raise your kids, how to deal with your brothers with money, what to do if somebody offends you or trespasses against you. If you're Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian and you open the Bible and you read it, you'll learn about who you are. You'll learn about how to deal with your brothers and sisters. You'll find out exactly what man you descend from. Right? Go down a bit. So again, that's another issue that they recognize something going on in both of their communities. I'll read one more part about that. It says, as an individual's identity grows and strengthens, So does the larger community's identity. With this, communities are beginning to demand their voices be heard by government and their issues be addressed. Participants agree that there is a growing sense that the government needs to adapt their relationships with minority communities to reflect their uniqueness and their aspirations. It was said in the gathering that one way of addressing this issue is to have members from those communities work within governments and act as translators. They should be in a position that allows them to translate the intent of government initiatives to communities in an appropriate manner. I'm going to skip over that, but basically, they don't have answers. They're looking for the government to solve their problems, and history will tell you, you're in 2021, history will tell you the government is going to do nothing for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Just look at the history, right? You think of doing a science test. What does science teach you, right? How do they teach it in school? They say wow, it's like I can't remember exactly how they say to do it, but basically when you perform a science test, you try it. Oh man, the words aren't coming in my head. But you do a science test, you try it, and you see if it works. You observe it. You write your observations about whether or not the test works or if it doesn't work. Right? You see what you can apply different tests to try to come up with a different answer or solution. And the point of it is to come up with a solution. Oh, that's going to annoy me. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but basically you're testing something to see if it works. Right? That's the point of a test. And if something isn't working, you don't continue doing the same thing. You don't continue performing the same test. Right? They say that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over. Right? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, some of us have lost our damn mind. You keep going to the Christian church again and again and again and you're not finding answers, you've lost your damn mind. You keep going to the government and voting, thinking that this is going to solve your problems. You keep marching and holding hands and, rioting and this and that, thinking that's going to solve your problem. That's insanity, man. We're just doing the same thing again and again and again, getting the same results, right? Good leadership is going to tell you that we got to separate from this place, right? Good leadership is going to say that we got to unite. We got to come together. We got to build our nation. We got to change the way we act, change the way we treat each other. Work together. Support Black and brown businesses. Lift each other up. Forgive each other. Work together to build our own government, our own kingdom. We're different, right? Unifying with these people is just sacrificing the beliefs that we have. We can't unify with these people. We can't unite with these people. We're different. We don't believe in the same things. We don't treat each other the same way. We don't move in the same spirit or the same vibe as these other nations of people. We got to learn to love ourselves. Right? We got to learn to be racist, just like how all these other nations are racist. Chinatown is all over Toronto. They stick to themselves, they support each other, they build up each other's business, and they're doing well. That's what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians got to do. We got to come together and build our own. Right? Look into this government to solve our identity problems. That's vanity, man. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. Go down a bit. So another thing they talked about was spirituality and religion. It was important that spirituality ground the gathering since it required or permitted each participant to speak from the heart and not from the mind. It gave the gathering as a whole the peace and comfort to speak about serious and sometimes painful experiences, with the understanding that there would be a collective sense of support and caring. Each day was open and closed with prayer and ceremony, and everyone participated regardless of whether the prayers were Christian or from Black or Aboriginal traditions. Despite the differences in culture and approaches, the respect for other cultures and teachings was strong and served to further unite the participants. I'm going to jump down a bit. It says, participants spoke about what it meant to be connected to their spirituality. Many felt that it allowed them to move beyond the problems and pain that they felt as Black or Aboriginal people. Spirituality allows for forgiveness and empathy for anyone who has done them harm and to show compassion to those in need as two individuals. It was noted by several participants that those who were involved in their own spirituality and religion were very supportive of the different beliefs of others at the gathering. There was agreement on the importance of maintaining a spiritual life regardless of the form it takes. A teaching shared by one of the participants at the gathering was that a spiritual journey takes one in different directions to learn about one's own spiritual path. The goal of this search is not to change one's belief, but to place those beliefs on a solid foundation within a larger faith community. So, I'm going to give a quick summary of this. Basically, something that brought Blacks and Aboriginal people together, or these leaders in our community, was that they recognize it'd be nice if I could find that part. I don't want to read the whole article, but basically, they understood that we're a spiritual people. Right? These Black leaders and Aboriginal leaders, they recognize that something that we have in common is that we're a spiritual people and that we believe in a creator. Right? And spirituality is an important part of our communities. We look to Christianity, we look to our Christian pastors for guidance and leadership, right? The Aboriginals look to their elders for spiritual guidance and leadership on how to deal with day-to-day problems. And again, that they have flat out failed us, right? It's so important for us to recognize that not only are we a spiritual people and we have a certain vibe about us, but more importantly, there's rules that our Father, that our Creator set out for us to follow, right? These rules that He gave us, these guidelines, these laws, statutes, and commandments, right? That is what will unite us. That is what will teach us how to treat each other. So I'm don't spend much longer on this article. But they came together. They talked about the youth, some of the problems that the youth are facing. I jumped down. Youth was a big issue that they talked about. They have women and families. They talked about some of those issues. Um, they talked about community. I'll jump down to this. Moving forward and closing. So moving forward, it says, as the gathering concluded with the last round of discussion, participants were asked about what they would like to see coming from the 2 days they shared together. While specific answers ranged over a number of ideas, there were several themes that kept surfacing. They were the need to move beyond the past and confront those ideologies that have kept the Black and Aboriginal communities apart. The need to know and use the current system to the community's advantage. The need to continue the discussion begun at the gathering and the need for both Aboriginal and Black communities to find ways of working more collaboratively. It was acknowledged that there was power in unity and that the two communities needed to work more closely in the future, but that movement had to come from the two communities themselves. One of the key discussion items was the need to move beyond talk to action. Many participants felt strongly that representatives from the Black and Aboriginal communities needed to meet and develop a joint plan of action to guide further discussions and actions. Some participants saw this gathering as a beginning stage in bringing other communities into the circle and thereby gaining more power and strength. And damn right, right? They're right for saying that blacks and browns, blacks and aboriginals coming together is gonna gather more power and strength. And it's unfortunate that they don't know that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians have already gathered together under Commanding General YAHANNA. And that's part of the reason we're doing this class today, is so that people can see that good leadership is already there. Blacks,
Right.
Hispanics, Native Indians have already gathered together. We're already gaining power and strength, right? Good leadership is what unites us. Good leadership is what creates a brotherhood, right? And that's exactly why we're doing this class. Shalom, Officer Zabadia, Yahba Shemishai Barakatah.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. Shalom, Mark.
Hey, shalom, shalom.
Wasn't trying to interrupt you. You seem like you're on a roll.
God, that's what. I'm just closing out this article. I spent a long time on it. I want to jump into some scripture.
God.
But just to catch you up a bit, basically, this class is just talking about freedom comes with building brotherhood.
Right.
Brotherhood comes from following the man that the Lord sent us. Right?
God.
For the nation of Israel, oppression is a real thing. Right? And Isaiah says Israel is a homeborn, or the prophet Isaiah asked, is Israel a homeborn slave? And he's asking that because Israel's always in captivity. Israel has always been in slavery. Israel has always faced oppression. And during all those slaveries and oppressions, the Most High has always sent saviors, has always sent prophets to get us out of that condition that we're in.
Right.
And in 2021, right, we have Commanding General YAHANNA. We have a prophet of the Most High leading us, teaching us how to act, teaching us how to change our ways, teaching us how to unite and come together. Right? So with that, I'm just gonna close the article. That's enough on that. Let's jump into some scripture.
God.
Salakia, sir, can you grab Who's telling me? Can you grab Psalms chapter 78 for me, Baba Kasha?
Huh. You said Psalms chapter 78?
Khan Khan.
Huh. Give me one, Salakia. What verse?
So let's start at verse 1. We're going to read up to verse 8.
Huh. Psalm 78, verse 1. Give ear, my people, to my law.
Give ear, O my people, to my law. Give ear, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, to the law, statutes, and commandments that your father gave to you. Right? Keep reading.
Incline your ears to the words of my mouth.
Right. We gotta 2021, like we gotta be tired of this oppression. We gotta be
Right.
tired of things going on in our communities. Right? 2021, it's time to open our ears and start listening. Right? You're a Benjamite. You got to be tired of feeling. You got to be tired of catching them licks, right?
Right.
I've heard my uncles, aunts, and uncles say it so many times. Uh, him who don't hear will feel, right? That's a common saying in our community, right? 2021, we got to open our ears and start listening to the Most High, right? Keep reading.
Verse 2. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old.
Right. The Most High many times speaks in parables, right? And a lot of times this is a way to better explain something that he's trying to tell us. And when he utters a dark saying of old, these are things sometimes hard to be understood. But everything that he utters, everything that he says, everything that he speaks, these are things that are recorded in the Bible. That's what these parables and dark sayings are. Keep reading.
Verse 3. Which we have heard and known,
Right.
and our
We have
fathers
heard
have
that.
told us.
Right. Our fathers have told us to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? These things hard to be understood. We understand the punishments and all the mysteries of the Most High. Our ancestors, our fathers, they recorded it in this Bible for us to understand. Right? Keep reading.
Which we, Salakia. Verse 4. We will not hide them from their children. Showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done.
Right. We got to teach these sayings, these parables. We got to teach this word to our kids, the generations to come. Right? Keep reading.
Come. Verse 5. For he established a testimony in Jacob.
He established a testimony with the Moabites.
With Jacob.
No, with Esau.
With Jacob.
The so-called white man.
Salakia. In Jacob.
He established, another word for testimony is witness or experience. If you're part of the 12 tribes of Israel, you're Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, only you have witnessed and experienced a relationship with the Most High.
Right.
Only you have seen his power. Only you have known his works. Right? The Most High walks with the children of Israel. And that testimony is for you, right? Keep reading.
And anointed a law in Israel,
Right. Keep reading.
which he commanded our fathers, that they should take Salakia, that they should make them known to their children.
Right. What these blacks and Aboriginal leaders in Canada don't recognize and don't know is that we were commanded by the Most High to keep these laws. Right? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, you are the children of God. This is your history, right? This is the covenant made between you and your father, you and your creator. And this is what we got to keep, and this is what our children have to keep. This is what's going to fix problems in our communities. Keep reading.
Verse 6, that the generation to come might know them,
Right.
even the children which should be born,
Right. Right.
who should arise, Salakia,
these blacks and Aboriginal leaders in Canada, right, trying to fix the problems with our youth, getting caught up in the prison system, getting caught up with drugs and addictions, alcohol, right? All these issues going on in our community, what would fix this is coming under good leadership. Good leadership not to sell drugs, not to do drugs, not to teach your daughter to be a whore, right? It would solve all of our problems in our community, right? Keep reading.
Salakia, who should arise and declare them to their children.
Right, read.
Verse 7, that they might set their hope in God, and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments.
This is what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians got to do. We got to keep the commandments of the Most High, right? This oppression that we're in, we're gonna get out of this oppression, the same way that we got out of Egypt, the same way that we got out of the Persian captivity, the Assyrian captivity, the Greek, the Roman captivity. This is the same way we're gonna get out of this place called spiritual Babylon and Egypt, or this place that's called spiritual Egypt and Sodom, right? This place called Babylon that Revelation speaks about. We're gonna become free from this place when we come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? Keep reading.
Right? Sure, here. Verse 8, and might not be as their fathers. A stubborn and rebellious generation.
Right. Our fathers, our ancestors, they're a stubborn and rebellious people. And we're paying for the sins of our fathers. Right? We're in this captivity because of the sins of our fathers. And we're in this oppression today because of the sins that we commit today. Right? We don't want to be as our fathers. And in that article, they understood that they have a lack of understanding of their identity. Right? That Indian Act that Canada has to this day, all the oppression that they've done to the Native Indians in Canada, stripping of them of their culture, stripping them of their heritage, forcing them on residential schools, not allowing them to practice their culture and their different religious beliefs or what their ancestors taught them, just stripping a people of their culture and their identity, right? They don't know what their fathers and ancestors were doing.
Right.
Right? But our people, our ancestors, they're rebellious and stiff-necked people. They weren't listening. Commanding General YAHANNA taught us exactly what our ancestors were doing and what we have to change to get out of this condition. Right? We don't want to be like our fathers. Keep reading.
A generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God.
Right. Our fathers, our ancestors, like I said, that's why we're in the condition that we're in. Right? Can you jump down to verse 21, Baba Kasha? I will stop at verse 20.
Stop at verse 20 what?
22, Baba Kasha.
Psalm 78, 21. Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire kindled against Jacob,
I read.
and anger also came up against Israel.
Read.
Verse 22. Because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation.
Right. This is why we are where we are. Right. Blacks and Native Indians. Khan, go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say, reading that verse, and just like you're saying, this is why we're in the condition we're in right now. This is why the ghetto is a terrible place to be. This is why black men are being shot in their cars instead of tasers being deployed, because
Right.
the prophets have been on these corners since 1969. They've been going out to the reservations. When they get to those reservations, when they get to in the ghettos and they open that Bible, everyone says that's the white man's book. You cannot have it here. You cannot read it here. When we ask them, what is the plan? What is the judgment of the oppressor, the so-called land stealer? They go habada habada habada. They don't know what to say, right? We tell them that this is the we tell them they're going into captivity. They look at us like we're crazy. Like, get out of here with that white man's book. They don't understand why black, brown, black and Hispanics and Native Americans need to gather together like we were.
Damn right. Damn right. And piggybacking off what you said, I said this earlier too, is we've been, that article, they said they're looking to government to solve some of their issues. Right?
Right.
You look through our history, voting has never solved our problems. Looking to government has never solved our issues. Holding hands and marching and rioting has never solved a thing for our people.
Right.
Right? All these things are vain solutions. They have no power, they have no meaning, they're a waste of time. Right? It's insanity to keep going to our Christian pastors and spiritual leaders for answers. Like, it's time for us to do something different. Right? It's time for us to trust in the Lord's salvation. It's time for us to put our faith in our Creator. Right? Follow the blueprint that He set out for us so that we can get out of this place. Right?
Salaki, if I can add on to what you're saying, it's like you said we're not supposed to be voting, right? Just a while ago, we watched all our brothers and sisters in
I call it middle hell, man. Like Canada's North hell, Mexico, South America, that's South hell. America is middle hell. That's what I call it. That's just me, right? Cracking jokes, but like
God.
we watched all our brothers and sisters in the Americas go crazy over some pedophile oppressor, talking about we're gonna vote him into office and we're gonna vote this Elamite who's posing as a sister, like everyone does. Everyone likes to take our vibe and our hard work and pose with it like they did it. They voted them to an office and said we're good now, right? A brother just got shot, right?
Right.
A young girl was pepper sprayed, right? Now, if we voted and Joe Biden was supposed to stop all the oppression, why hasn't it stopped? Why is he on the news saying there's no reason to riot? There's nothing that justifies rioting, right? That devil will never understand black pain,
Right.
right? Oppression makes a wise man mad. You
Right.
think people just want to go and destroy their neighborhood?
Yeah,
Right?
man.
We just have to understand that like voting for these oppressors is not going to do nothing for us. You got to take your life and your love out of the oppressor. Take it out of their culture, right? It doesn't matter if that oppressor is African, if that oppressor is white or Chinese. They're still oppressors.
Right. Right. Salaki, can you read that verse again? Verse 22.
Khan. Hey, Shalom, sir. How about Shem Al Shabrakatha?
Shalom, Adawan. Yahba Shem and Shabrak.
Hey, Shalom, preach. What's going on?
Messiah Christ.
Shalom, sir.
Wow, sir.
Yeah. Hey, Shalom. All right, see that you can proceed.
Khan, Khan.
So like,
Psalms 78,
so
verse
like, so
22. Khan.
so like, us Shah one already looking at me like he's in the kingdom, man.
Kind sir. Sir. Trying to build that kingdom, you know what I mean?
Yeah, look, crown on the head. I need to get one of those. Who's that? Lamaya?
Right.
Officer Lamaya, man. That Tawab work.
Damn right. Damn
Right.
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 Yeah.
Do you want me to read that scripture now?
Come on, sir. The water, sir.
Yeah. Psalm 78, verse 22. Because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation.
Right. And that's our problem, right? That's our problem with Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, right? We don't trust in the Most High salvation, right?
Right.
Under Commanding General Yahanna, under Commanding General Yahanna and following his leadership, that's what creates good brotherhood. That's what creates good sisterhood. You know what I mean? That's what allows me to be with my brothers here today who labor with me for us to unite and build this kingdom, right?
Right.
Can you hold Exodus chapter 11 and verse 4 for me, Baba Kasha?
God. 11 verse 4.
Khan. I'm just gonna read a verse before we get to that. This is Exodus. Khan. Hold that, Baba Kasha. So Exodus chapter 14 and verse 12 says, "Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness." There's some brothers, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, that would rather serve this kingdom than get salvation. it's something that's unfortunately gonna happen, right? They have learned to accept the breadcrumbs that their oppressors give them, and they don't trust in the salvation of the Most High. They're not looking to be saved from this oppression. They've learned to comply, and they're okay to be frisked down. And when a police officer stops them, give them their ID and tell them about all their business. They're okay saying, yes, boss, yes, master, checking in, working those 60 hours a week. A lot of our people, they're just accepting this oppression, right? They're accepting the breadcrumbs that this place is giving them, right? But if you're a person, if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, and you want something better, you want your own rulership, you want a kingdom, you want your own dollar bill, you want your own governing bodies, right? You're tired of the oppression that you see every day. You gotta trust in the Most High's salvation, right? Can you read that verse when you got it?
Con. Exodus 12, verse 4.
Slack you, sir. Exodus 11 and verse 4.
11, verse 4. Salakia.
Come.
And Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt.
Read.
Verse 5. And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die.
Shall what?
Shall die.
The Christian pastors are not teaching what salvation really is. These spiritual leaders that we have, they are not teaching what real salvation is. You want to trust in the Lord's salvation. You want to trust in the Lord's ways. You want to trust that He knows best. His salvation, people have to die, right? Keep reading.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservants that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts.
This salvation that we're gonna get, something that you have to accept, is your oppressor, right? That white oppressor that you love so much, they have to die.
Right.
You want salvation out of this kingdom? You want freedom out of this kingdom? These people have to die. It's a must.
Right.
That's the Lord's salvation. And that's what we're getting ready to celebrate in Passover. We're about to celebrate the slaughter of the Egyptians, right? We've been at war. We've been oppressed, right? I'm paraphrasing. I think it's Revelations 13 and 11, right? He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. The Lord's salvation, people have to die. Right? Keep reading.
Verse 6. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt.
Wait. People are going to be holding hands at some pearly golden gate in the sky.
A great cry.
A great cry is going to go throughout this kingdom called Babylon. Right? There's going to be great slaughter, a great cry. This is what the saints are patiently waiting for. Right? Keep reading.
throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore.
Right.
So,
Hey, shalom, young man, boy. Yahweh Hashem Yeshai
Shalom,
Barakatah.
shalom.
hey, Shalom,
Shalom.
warrior. Yahweh Hashem Yahshua
Yabashim Yashabraktham.
Salakia. I was gonna say, man, these oppressors, they be downtown crying right now over these plagues, man. Like,
Right.
they be crying, having protests over masks and stuff. And you got to think about it. We had camp just a few weeks ago. They were out there saying, like, more, no masks, more hugs, right? Now it's April 13th, and the city of Toronto is seeing 4,400 COVID cases daily.
Damn right.
Rakatha Yahweh Yahushua.
Damn right. Damn right. There's gonna be a great cry in this kingdom.
Right.
Actually, we're gonna jump into more of the destruction of Babylon. Officers of body, can you grab Wisdom of Solomon 18 and 7?
Come on.
And young man Kavoy, can you grab Revelation 16 and verse 15, Baba Kasha?
Gone. Revelation 16, verse 11.
16 and verse 15.
Salakia, can you repeat that Wisdom of Solomon again?
Come. Chapter 18 and verse 7.
Come on, I got it here whenever you're ready.
Come, go ahead.
Wisdom of Solomon 18, verse 7. So of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteousness and destruction of the enemies.
Right. Like some of us just have to come to terms with and accept it that our salvation is coming for the righteous, and there are people that are going to be destroyed. There are people that are going to die. Right?
Right.
For all the oppression that we've gone through, all the things that have happened in the dark that we don't know about, all the things that we see in the news, the Most High has a judgment coming for those people. Right? And it's a righteous judgment. It's something that people deserve. What goes around comes around. Right? Karma is real. Righteous judgment is if you do something to somebody, it ought to be done back to you. Right? Some of these oppressors have to die. For all the wickedness, all the crime that they've done to our people, the destruction of them, their kingdom, has to happen. Right? Go ahead and read Revelations when you got it.
Revelations, chapter 16, verse 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walketh naked and they see his shame.
Right. Christ is coming like a thief in the night, right? What that means is when he comes, people aren't going to expect it. People aren't going to be ready for it, right? People are going to be caught off guard. And blessed are those that keep his garments, meaning keeping your garments is like wearing your uniform when you go to work, right? The men in the I.S.U.P.K, we are laboring for the Most High. We are doing his work, right? We're preparing. We got to stay ready and be ready when Christ returns. We got to keep our uniform on, keep our garments on, right? We got to keep pushing this truth, doing this work. The men in the I.S.U.P.K, we're going to be blessed when Christ comes back, okay? We can't drop our swords. We got to keep on pushing and doing this work, right? Keep reading.
Revelations, chapter 16, verse 16. And he that gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon.
Right. Let me grab that slack. Let me grab the definition of Armageddon. I got that in the zone. So this is the Zondervan's pictorial Bible dictionary. It says Armageddon, a word found only in Revelation 16 and 16. For the final battleground between the forces of good and evil. The valley of Jezreel and the plain of Esdra at the foot of Mount Megiddo were the scene of many decisive battles in the history of Israel. Gideon's defeat of Midian, Saul's death at the hands of the Philistines, where Josiah was slain in the battle with Pharaoh, Ahaziah fled and was killed there. The town of Megiddo guarded the pass which formed the easiest caravan route between the plain of Sharon and the valley of Jezreel, and the low mountains around were silent witnesses of perhaps more bloody encounters than any other spot on earth. Right? Christ is coming to slaughter people. Right? The Christian church doesn't teach this. When Christ comes back, it's going to be bloody. Right? Like officers of body of red. There's going to be a loud cry. Right? Jump down to verse 18.
Revelation chapter 16, verse 18. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great.
Right. When Christ returns, there's going to be so much death, the earth is going to shake. Right? Christ said, you haven't seen death until I return. And what that means is, if you can think of any of the horrendous crimes or any of the horrendous killing you've ever seen on earth, when Christ comes back, you're not going to be able to imagine the things that he's going to do. The earth is going to quake when he returns. The whole earth is going to feel the slaughter that he does on this earth. Right? Keep reading.
Revelation chapter 16, verse 19. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nation fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of wine of the fierceness of his wrath.
Right. The Most High isn't going to forget the crimes Babylon has committed. And when Christ returns, the nations are going to feel his anger. Just like the Egyptians cried out at the slaughter of their people. Right? This is what's going to happen. This is the salvation in Psalm 78 and 22 that we got to trust in. This is a salvation that's coming for our people. Right?
Right.
We got to obey our Father, do what he says. We got to trust in his ways. Right? He's sending saviors. He's sending prophets. He's sending Christ back to take us out of this oppression. Right? And this is what we're getting ready to celebrate in Passover.
I just wanted to add a precept to what you're saying, because when Christ comes back, he's definitely, like, if you're not in the I.S.U.P.K, man, like, you're gonna be slaughtered, right? If you're not with this brotherhood, you're gonna get caught up in the daughter of Babylon's plagues, right? And when Christ comes back, he's definitely going to be slaughtering, right? And I just wanted to add a precept. This is Revelations 19, and I'll start at 12. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, right? Because Christ is he's going to be slaying the kings of the earth, right? And he had a name written that no man knew it but himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God, right? So Christ's garment, it's going to be dipped in blood. You have to think about how much blood you need to dip a garment, right? Verse 14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Christ, he's coming back with 200 million angels, right? And those angels, they're going to slaughter the kings and the nations of this earth, so blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans could be free. Now, that's the only thing that's going to uh defeat our oppressors. Christ only Christ could defeat our oppressors. Salakia.
Right, damn right. And that's the salvation that we have to look forward to, right? Salakia, young man Kavoy, can you grab 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 12 for me?
Chapter 5, verse 12.
Khan. And like I was saying, this is the salvation that we have coming for us, right?
Right.
And we got to unite as a brotherhood, right? We got to come under good leadership. General YAHANNA is what's uniting us right now. Good leadership is what's uniting blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And just like in Egypt, right, we were sent a leader. We were sent somebody to follow that would take us out of our captivity, right? Following Commanding General YAHANNA is what will create good brotherhood. That's what creates unity, right? Like I said in that article, those blacks and Aboriginal leaders are looking for solutions. They're looking to unite. In the I.S.U.P.K, we're already united. We're already working together. We're already learning to treat each other better, learning how to treat our wives, how to raise our kids, right? Good leadership is what creates good brotherhood, right? And this wouldn't be a brotherhood class unless I went through a couple ways that we got to learn to treat each other. So we'll get through this book and then we'll end the class there. Go ahead and read verse 12 when you got it.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 12. And we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you.
Right. Being in the I.S.U.P.K, our brothers, our sisters, we gotta know about the brothers, right? We gotta learn to communicate with each other, right? We gotta learn to know about the brothers that labor among us, right? When we start to look at each other as younger brothers, older brothers, younger sisters, when we start to look at each other as a family, life is going to begin to get better for us, right?
Right.
We're a family and we learn to love each other. A brother who doesn't say something to his younger sister when she's acting up, he doesn't love her, right? We got to admonish each other. You see a brother who's stepping too close to the fire, you got to pull that brother away from that fire, right? We got to look at each other as brothers and sisters, right? And we got to learn to admonish each other. We got to learn to get to know each other, right? Keep reading.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 13. And to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among yourselves.
Right. And something that's important to understand is that when Satan comes to attack us, he's not attacking the work that we're doing, right? He attacks your weakness. He attacks the demons that you have. It's so important for us to look at each other and respect and honor that the work that we put in, right? I've known officers of body now for what? It's been about 2 years now. I
Right.
respect this brother, right? At the end of the day, no matter what officers of body does, I see that brother at camp. I see that brother studying. I see that brother teaching. I see that brother raising men up, right? I see that brother getting stuff, building signs for camp, right? I see this brother working diligently, and regardless of a fault or a trespass that I might have with him, at the end of the day, I can always say I respect this brother's work. And this is something that's important for all of us to remember and to keep in mind, right? Young man Kavoy came from Montreal to Toronto to help hold camp, to help wake people up. At the end of the day, this brother labors hard. He puts in the work. He's out handing out
Right.
flyers, right? He's
Right.
studying, doing this work, right? We gotta honor that, right? Esteem it very highly, right? Keep reading.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 14. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble-minded, support the weak, be patient towards all men.
Right. The only way to warn a brother that is unruly is you have to know who he is, right? We have to get to know each other. We got to look at this brotherhood as a family, right? Like, we're not going to be able to catch a brother when he starts to slip if we think that's just his natural behavior, right? I got to get to know young man Kavoy better, because if he's doing something where it looks like he's starting to slip, because I don't know him, I might look at it as, well, that's just who he is. He normally doesn't show up for class. He normally doesn't check in, right? I'm not gonna know any better unless I get to know this brother, right? We're a family. We got to get to know each other.
Right.
That way we can catch each other when someone starts to slip, right? The mind is something powerful, and if Satan starts playing and getting in your mind, right? Sometimes a good brother that knows you can get you out of that situation, right? I know a couple weeks ago I had a small issue, right? I called officers about it. You know what I mean? I was looking to a brother to help get me out of the situation, right? Just a small word of encouragement or something to catch me from slipping is sometimes all a brother needs, right?
Right.
And that's what we got to do, right? And when it says comfort the feeble-minded, right? Some people are just weak-minded, right? And that's not necessarily a fault of their own. That's just how we were raised or the condition that we grew up in. But getting in the I.S.U.P.K, going to class, going to council, rehearsing righteous acts, that's what's going to help strengthen our minds, right? We don't got to get annoyed or frustrated with a brother or sister because somebody's struggling with something, right? Like we gotta be understanding with our brothers and sisters, right? You see a brother or sister struggling in this truth, you know, just say no sweat, Ox, no big deal. I understand. But we really got to focus on looking at each other like family, right? We work together. We build this nation up, right? Keep reading.
Verse 15. See that none render evil unto any man, but ever follow that which is good, both among yourselves and to all men.
Saki, read that from the top.
See that none render evil for evil to any man,
Right.
but ever
See
follow
that?
that which is. Salaki, sir.
No sweat. No sweat, Ox. See that none render evil for evil unto any man, right? Like I said, we got to look at each other as brothers, as family, brothers and sisters.
Right.
Coming in the I.S.U.P.K, it already takes a certain level of discipline to stop eating shrimp, crab, and lobster. It takes a certain level of discipline to stop celebrating birthdays. But it takes a whole other level to carry each other's burdens. And this is what the men in the I.S.U.P.K are teaching. We got to carry each other's burdens. We got to suffer for each other, right? It's normal and valid to be upset at your brother when they trespassed against you.
Right.
But we got to be at a level that we're operating on where this is still my brother. This is still my sister, right? We got to learn not to hold grudges against each other. We got to learn to forgive each other. Christ said 70 times 7, right? Like this is the kind of level that we got to learn to operate on. And one of the things that will help us in that is esteeming the labor and the work that our brothers do amongst us, right? At the end of the day, you can't take away what a man puts in, the work a man puts in this truth. Focus on that, right? Focus on the good works that we're doing. Focus on the goal. Focus on getting out of this oppression, right? Somebody trespasses against you, just let that shit go, right? Get to know each other. We got to learn to be a family, right? Pick each other up,
Right.
bear each other's burden, right? And with that, how much time we got? Let's grab one more scripture. Young man Kavoy, can you grab? Let's grab Psalms 133 and verse 1.
Kana one kan.
What's the
Psalms 33, verse 1.
Salakia, Psalms 133. 133.
133.
Okay.
Verse 1.
Kana.
Psalms 133, verse 1. A song of decrees of David. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity.
Right. This is a beautiful verse, right? And every man and woman in I.S.U.P.K, we got to understand what this verse is talking about, right? We can't overlook this scripture. It's so easy for us to be carnal and focus on ourselves, make everything about us, say, I was offended, I feel hurt, I don't like what he or she said, when really it would be a beautiful thing to just wake up with a clean slate, right? It would be a beautiful thing to just wake up, see your brothers and sisters, and get along with them, right? I got three boys. One of the things that vexes me the most is when they start fighting with each other, right? That's how the Most High looks at us. He hates when his brothers and sisters fight with each other. He hates black on black crime. He hates when a
Right,
brother sleeps with another man's wife, right? He hates
right,
to see a brother sell drugs to another brother, right? The Most High
damn
hates
right.
these things. We got to learn to be a family. And it's such a beautiful thing when brothers dwell together in unity, right? So with that, I'm going to end the class. Let's do the security announcements and we'll salute out. Let's clap it up. So we are the I.S.U.P.K. Start out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. They need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. Means tenth in the Hebrew. Ma'ashra. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, please give. And Salakia to the Akim, like I said, this is a brotherhood. Let's build this school up in Canada, right? Let's get our funds together, keep putting in the work, and let's build this school up in Canada. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, give. Upcoming holy convocations, Passover's coming up in a couple days, a little over a week. This year's annual Passover is held by Commanding General YAHANNA on April 24th in Houston, Texas. This year's annual Passover will be held at the BH Ranch, 14149 Players Street in Houston, Texas. Call your camp leader if you need any more information, or if you're in Canada, call Officer 500 Zabadia, who's in charge of the High Holy Days. And that's it for that. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courtesy salute to the brothers and one courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, I Majum, which means stand. Give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Imajim Shabbat. Imajim Barak. Yahba Shem Yahshai Barakatham. Yad Matah, which means hands down. Going to give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Imajim Shabbat. Imajim Barak. Yahweh Shamar Alatha B'Shem Yahshai. Yad Matah, which means hands down. Class dismissed.
Wild class, huh? Wild class.